I think there's a big difference between uh, creating content, posting willy-nilly, and then intentionally looking at the content you're creating with intention. I know for me, I'll give you guys a good real-time example of this. When I was blogging, this is why my blog didn't do anything. It's why I had, 296,000 words on a blog, which is, 5 books worth of content that didn't make sales because I was just creating content to create content. I was being consistent because everybody was saying be consistent and your life will change. Um, so I know this is kind of a piggyback of what we talk about a lot, where we're like, hey, you have to get consistent. But once you're consistent, we need to start looking at optimizing your content to move your audience towards a following you or becoming a potential customer. Um, so these are a couple exercises that you guys can do. You guys will actually see in this document. I started doing this for myself um, because I'm going to be testing personally a lot of this different styles in my own content. So first things first, we need to think about emotions. We need to think about the emotion we're trying to invoke in the content we're creating. Not your emotions, the emotion for the audience, the consumer, the reader, the watcher, the person that is actually consuming your content. What do you want them to feel? What type of connection do I want to create with this piece of content? Right? What do I want the reader or watcher to feel from this? How will this piece of content allow them to connect with me as a creator? Right? How am I going to plant that connection? Okay. Relatability, pain, struggle, outcome, inspiration, etc. Like this is a neglected piece in a lot of people's content, mine included at times, right? You have everybody's hammering, and I don't mean to make a blanket statement, but a lot of people are just hammering information, tactics, strategies. Buy this product and you'll make all this money. Buy this digital product and it's going to help you do X, Y, Z. And that's fine because that's one piece to a puzzle, but this is leaving out this entire piece, the emotion piece, the connection, the relatability, the relationship beyond the product you're selling, right? So we want to kind of think about this before we create anything. What do we want our reader to feel? What do we want them to get from reading this piece of content? What do we want the consumer to get from it? Because you have to remember people are inadvertently selfish. So they're not going to take action on your content. They're not going to follow you. They're not going to join your group. They're not going to chat with you about an offer there's nothing in it for them.
Well,
That's the reality of
there's
it.
there's two things to keep in mind around this. All right, that's not on this, and I'm gonna ask y'all a question. Because I like it when y'all motherfuckers are engaged with us. Okay, like I like the chat to be popping. Why do you get on social media? All right, it could be anything, but I want you to think about why you really get on social media when you go to scroll or watch videos or read posts. There's it really falls under two categories. I'm gonna see if anyone gets it. Right. I'm gonna give y'all a second to kind of jump in the chat. If you're driving, don't do this. So that's dangerous. Even though we probably all drive with our knees and, you know, look at our phones while we're driving.
I mean, that's a tall people problem. I can't even reach the steering wheel with my knees. What do you mean?
All right. Scott says to make money. Liana, I go for inspiration to create my own content. If it's not for biz, it's to relax, right? Laugh. Um,
Distraction.
connect with connect with others, add value, distraction. It's definitely a thing that'll do it, right? So here are the two things: entertainment, education. That's why most people get on social media, right? That's why most people are at their job or they're sitting at home on their couch and scrolling social media. It helps them to escape. It helps them to be distracted, right? Social media is a distraction. It really is, unless you're on the creator side, right? I've always said the last few years you got people that consume and then you got people that create. The people that create have the content that is being consumed. That is where business transactions happen. right? But people are getting on to be entertained or educated, right? And all that falls under everything that you guys mentioned. Okay. So edutainment is like a great way to do marketing. All right. Essentially, if you're posting anything, it's marketing, right? What you're doing every day in life, that's marketing. Marketing is literally everywhere. Okay. So keep this in mind with the emotions piece. You can technically say it's the three E's, right? Because entertainment and education taps into the emotions of people. Okay.
Yeah, you also have to remember who your potential customer ideal clients are or whatever are going to be on social media for different reasons, right? So if you're kind of optimizing to speak to a brand new beginner who's never done anything online, you got to remember a lot of the times they're not there to learn tactics or strategies. Like maybe they're not even problem or solution aware. Like so, or like as an example, if you're kind of optimizing to speak to people further along in business, then yes, they are going to be a little bit more like tactic heavy or strategy focused. Um, but it's gonna fluctuate depending on who you're kind of trying to speak to. And what we mention often is like usually you want to be optimizing to speak to someone you 6 months ago is kind of who you're talking to, which then makes it easy to create emotional connection because you can share stories, struggles, breakthroughs, things that you went through 6 months ago that you can now help your audience get through, if that makes sense. Um, Now, another thing that I want to kind of like really reinforce is like this will take a little bit of work on your guys' part, and did give you examples of things that I'm personally going to try to create these for myself. But creating core stories, and what I really mean by core stories are micro stories, examples, and things that you can hammer on repeat. You can casually inject in a lot of your content. You can put it in your copy. You can put it in your videos, um, because they're going to create relatability. They're going to highlight pain, and they're going to showcase expertise. So, like if you look at Gary Vee, right, hammers the same thing over and over again. Hey, I built my parents' business to all this stuff utilizing YouTube and internet and the power of content creation, and I started over at 30 with absolutely nothing, right? And if you look at all of his other content, a big angle that he uses over and over again is like, hey, it's never too late to start over. So it's very congruent with his core story. His core story is, hey, I started over at this age, and it's not too late for you to restart. Russell Brunson, potato gun story. Okay, for those guys that don't know the story, it's how him and his buddy created this digital product around creating potato guns and all this type of stuff, and they realized the power of sales funnels because you know, the ad cost was getting more and more expensive and they couldn't afford to do one-off transactions for this potato gun plan and they started adding order bumps. So again, that's very congruent with him talking about sales funnels, order bumps, how to create funnels that, make it so you can make uh money on your ads or you can break even realistically is the ultimate goal with ad cost. Alex Hormozy sleeping on the gym floor, et cetera, right? It's all things that people repeat over and over and over again, which kind of goes against what everybody says, like, oh, I can't keep saying the same thing because, I've already said that. Like, our job as business owners, content creators, product sellers are realistically to talk about the same thing in as many different lenses as we can, right? If you look at Flip and Mize content, we've been since what 2022, we've been trying to talk about group juice in as many different ways as we possibly can. Thousands of pieces of content around one product, right? Stories, examples, client wins, our own expertise, why this changed everything for us, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So I'll give you guys some examples of core stories that I could potentially leverage, and I probably will leverage, have leveraged over the years. Um, like the pinnacle moment that I knew I was meant for something different when I missed out on my daughter's first Easter when my mom sent me a picture of my daughter sitting in an Easter basket and I was at a job I fucking hated, working overtime, and it caused these internal questions of like why I was sacrificing moments in my life for fucking job I hated. Um, how I needed to build a different type of business online because uh I constantly found myself not present in my life because I needed to be building my business. Right. I would take my daughter to the park and I would be like, oh, I need to be at home building my business. And it's like, why am I fucking checking these boxes that everybody tells me I need to check when it's literally doing the exact same thing that a job was doing? Like I can't even disconnect and be at the park for 30 minutes because somebody might book a call with me or some bullshit, right? Like how I knew I needed to build a different type of business. Or to give you guys another example where I was on a sales call and my daughter came in with a dog toy in her mouth and asked me if I wanted to play fetch. And it completely turned the person off. Like, oh, you should be paying attention to me. And I fucking ended that call. Like, I'm good. I don't want you to be a client of mine. If that's gonna make you upset that my daughter wants to fucking play with me, like I'm good. While my first three years of my online journey were the most challenging, following everyone blindly, buying all the done for you affiliate products, the plug and play courses, trying to do everybody's strategy and sell everybody's product and program and optimize to do 7,000 things in my business with no fucking clarity around what I was actually doing. Okay. Um, when I started to have success, okay, the processes and the models that started working, which it's just what we do now and teach now, right? Client stories. Um, how I made $65 in my first 3 years online after showing up consistently every day, working a full-time job, doing weekly YouTube videos, Facebook posts, group posts. Um, how I went from that to having my first $1,000 days in less than 8 days by doing a lot less things in my business, right? By removing 90% of the shit that I was doing and how I actually started having success. A very powerful story to leverage, which is all true. It's all very real experiences, right? My first $65, I was playing dress up with my daughter. I was in a bumblebee costume, had glasses on and everything. And it took me years to get to that point. I wrote blog posts, hundreds of YouTube videos, hundreds of Facebook posts. I was just all over the place.
Yeah.
And then I trimmed the fat, started only using my Facebook, and I made $1,000 in 8 days. Simply talking to somebody like, hey, would you like
It's
to do this together? Yeah.
it's wild. It's wild when you stop trying to do 100 different things and only focus on, needle movers. All right. Content is like the biggest needle mover. Okay.
Hmm.
Like I'll give you guys an example, kind of what Nate was talking about around stories.
You gotta find
Right.
a two dicks in a
Um,
ball.
I was hanging out with Mike yesterday. I was at Mike's house for almost fucking 6 hours yesterday, y'all. Like, and we had a ton of fun and we told a shit ton of stories. And one of the stories that came up was how Mike remembers when minimum wage was $2 an hour, right? And when think about that. Minimum wage was $2 an hour. I'm only old enough to remember minimum wage being $5 an hour. But we were talking about how even making that money an hour at a job, it was like that allowed you to do a bunch of shit. It allowed you to go and, go to the movies, get gas, get food, and everything wasn't as expensive. But if you were making, you know, two, three, four, $5 an hour, that was kind of a big deal back then, right? Because like that was just how it was. And now, if you're not making at least $20 an hour, like it ain't shit. It's not shit. That was one of the things that come up. And then, of course, hunting stories, and we made some videos and had a good damn time, right? Enjoyed the shit out of it. So now we've got stuff that we can create content from that alone. Now, the thing to think about, like after Nate sharing his examples, is like the goal of your content and telling stories is to pull people closer to you. They need to be able to see a little bit of themselves inside of your content, right? I made a TikTok while I was out running a shit ton of errands, and I was talking about how my Adderall kicked in, and I knocked out, like 17 things in an hour, and I was only 2 minutes late, getting home by 12, right? And I had a comment that said, "I'm glad I'm not the only one that's an overachiever," right? So like it's just relatability to simple shit, right? So the goal is to pull people closer to you on the stories that you're telling and the lessons that you're sharing, and create a connection, right? Because what's what's the R&R that we've always said? I kind of became known for saying, relationships over revenue, because if you build the relationships, the revenue follows. Right? That's like one of our golden recipes, honestly, right? So think about, challenges you've hit, lifestyle, stories, back then versus now, how things are different, roadblocks that you've overcame, hard shit you've went through. And one of the other things that came up, me and Mike were talking, is like neither one of us feel like we can really let loose, because we got blue collar backgrounds and we used to talk pure cash shit, right? And we need to let that show because that's a part of who we are. We love talking and shooting the shit, making jokes, half of them inappropriate. Humor's, off the charts. Really follows up with, Nate and how he is. You know what I'm saying? Like this is this
Unprofessional.
is a big deal. It's a really big deal.
And don't be afraid to like stand on your views on things. This is a very big one. Like we've had, I'll give you guys an example. We've had bigger creators like literally run lives talking shit about us because we simply stand on what we do believe in and what we don't believe in. Right. And that I'm not saying like, and a lot of you guys will know that, like, we don't do calls, we don't do the whole, clickbait, screenshot warrior. That's all we talk about is results, plug and play. You're going to make all this money overnight. And like, yeah, we get some hate for not standing on that. But at the end of the day, none of it worked for us. Right.
Yeah.
It's not like we're using this as a marketing angle. It's realistically just sharing our own experience of chasing our tail for 3 years individually, getting nowhere, donating 30, $40,000 to all these done for you products and getting nowhere, right? Realistically. Um, and part of that might be because of our expectations were fucked when we were starting, which a lot of the market is, right? Because it doesn't help that, business building an online business is a very real and hard thing. And then half of the market talks about how easy it is, right? So they're very contradicting for customer experiences, right? Because then they come in, oh, this didn't work in 15 minutes. I need to go find something else that will work. And then people just go in circles. So don't be afraid to stand in your own thing. And I'm not saying your thing has to be our thing either, right? If you sell done for you plug and play products, cool. Do that. Like stand in that. Stand in why it works or why it has worked for you or pieces and parts that you like. Um, like don't be afraid to draw a line in the sand around what you do and what you don't do for people, right? Because it all comes to this. Your goal is to pull people closer to you and repel the people that aren't good fits for you, right? If you look on a deeper level, if we're talking about 6 to 12 months, put in this work, show up consistently, do all this type of stuff, it would actually do more brand damage for us if we went out and we started talking about, and not necessarily brand damage, but over prolonged periods of time, it would make our business harder because if we were selling a bunch of people on the pretense of quick, easy money, and then they came in, and then everything in our trainings, our courses, our programs are like, hey, this is a long-term play. Like you're gonna taint that experience right out of the gate, and then they're gonna cancel, they're gonna leave, they're gonna go do something else, and then it just makes our life harder because we're selling to the wrong people, right? And that's not that there's right or wrong people, but as an example, we're just what you say and the type of content you're creating plays a huge part in how easy or difficult it is to sell products to people. Like the number, like this is a good real time example for those of you guys that have been in the space for it's probably 2 years at this point. The number one uh angle in content was like, this is the best side hustle for lazy and broke people. And then everybody was like, hey, why is nobody buying my products? Like, look at the content you're creating. You're calling out people who are lazy and broke. Why would they have money to buy your product, let alone the motivation to even actually do what's required to have success with your product? Right? But the way that this online game works is somebody does something and then you got 7,000 creators copying that person and it's just this clusterfuck, right? So don't be afraid to stand in what you do and what you don't believe in. Even if that pisses people off, right? That's fine. It's the goal. Find your tribe of people that are like you, that want to build the same shit as you or do the same things as you, and they don't want to do the same stuff that you don't want to do, right? You don't have to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's completely fine. We have people leave our group every day because, you know, write in the welcome post, hey, don't expect this. If you're here for a magic money button, you can leave our group. I think the first 3 videos inside of our free community literally says, hey, if you're expecting to make a bunch of money with minimal work, we don't have anything for you. Like, this is a real business and we'll show you how to make magic, but it's going to require a lot of work on your part, right? So don't be afraid to long-winded answer of just saying don't be afraid to stand in what you do and what you don't believe in, whatever that is, right? Just because we have views and stances on the market doesn't mean you have to have the exact same ones. Trying to
Yeah,
implore you guys to build your vision of success, not flipping Nate's version of success, right? You are all individual human beings that have different views and opinions on life. So
100%. So here's a couple things you guys can think about, ask yourself, as far as like pre-content questions go. Okay. Now, I know this might seem daunting or tedious, but it's pretty important if you want your content to actually get engagement and reach the right people. All right. Now, number one is the what, the hook, the promise, the context of the content. All right. Catching people's attention and giving them a reason to actually watch or read your shit. All right. I see a lot of folks that are just throwing out, I'll call a spade a spade. Some people post dumb ass shit. And then they're like, I don't know why I'm not making sales. I don't know why my audience isn't growing. It's because you're posting dumb shit. All right. Let's just be real. Now I understand sometimes dumb shit's good if it's got like, some comedic stuff to it. Like it's funny. All right, I get that. I just posted one this morning. All right. It's gonna get engagement, I'm sure. And all it said was, all right, Black Friday, everybody's got big TVs now. Can we put groceries on sale? People are going to feel that because if you've been to the grocery store lately, you already know shit is expensive as fuck. All right. So we need to get people's attention. The what, the hook, the promise, the headline, etc. All right. And then number two, the why. We're trying to create and communicate the understanding of like why this is important to us and why it should be important to them. Right? Either what will happen if they do or don't do something, as an example. It can be negative and positive. This is like polarizing, right? Like think about like going as deep as you possibly can into different topics with stories, because you're going to speak to the emotional side of their brain, right? Versus the logical side, right? Going specific, on certain buckets, and creating the core stories like we were talking about. Like how many of y'all have heard my lawnmower story, right? Or how I hit my first big month. Like y'all know that because I've repeated it over and over because it's relevant. Okay. So this is what connects your audience to you and they see a little bit of themselves in you around things that you're sharing. That's what creates the connection. It's what starts the relationship. It's what gets them to pay attention and actually take action on certain things that you put in your content. All right. And reference point as to like how you got to where you are, you know? Some people look at me and they're like, oh, it's overnight success. Yeah, over fucking 7 years. It's not overnight success, right? Some people are like, well, I posted content for 32 days and nothing happened. This shit doesn't work. And then they go to the next thing. That's a vicious cycle that most people stay in. They live in it, right? It's a vicious cycle. It's terrible. All right. Drop facts, share stories. Stories actually sell, even when you're not trying to sell. Okay. So number three, how and then the structure. Like this is the bulk of the content or the body of it, the meat and potatoes, as us country folks say. All right. Get lean as fuck around how you create content and then the tactics that you're giving the folks in your world. We give away a ton of free stuff. We tell stories. All right. We talk about how things can help. We do comparison. This was us back then, this is us now. Here's what's worked, here's what didn't. All right. If I frame something and say, I used to pay for ads because I was told that was going to make me $10,000 a month. And then I wasted 2 grand on ads and only made $22. All right, this is another story I've told multiple times. I thought that was how to get to 10K a month. Spend money on ads, send them to an affiliate product, and I was just going to be rich as fuck. All right, that was like when I was first getting started in the entrepreneur journey. All right, I got duped for 2 grand, guys, but I did make an affiliate sale for 22 bucks. So I was like, all right, it made a sale, but I'm in the red. All right, like I didn't make no profit, but it showed me what was possible. Like you can make sales, but maybe spending money on ads isn't the way. That's when I jumped into Facebook organic. All I did was post on Facebook and talk to people in the DMs. That's how I hit my first $20,000 month, y'all. I didn't spend shit on ads. I was posting pictures with words on Facebook and built an audience. All right. So does does what you do have 3 steps? Could it be 2? What's like the main plan that you've done? What's gotten you the results? Right? What did you used to do that didn't fucking work? Because if anybody else sees what you were doing that didn't work, and then what you did to get things to start to work or get any kind of results, monetary or non-monetary, if they're doing what you were doing that didn't work, what do you think's going to happen? I'm like, oh, maybe this is the best way to do it. They said they made this switch and they started doing this, and then they hit a breakthrough, and they're offering some free shit. Maybe I should check that out. Boom, connection, attention, eyeballs, relatability. That's what happens, right? Give them like the core essentials. Core essentials broke down. Give them some fucking good information. Give them some shit they can chew on. Give them something that's going to let them go out and get some quick wins. Maybe it's going to get them more views on their content, right? Maybe it's going to help them generate their first leads. Maybe it's going to make creating content easier for them. Maybe it's a business model, whatever. But give them the core and nothing else, right? The minimum number of things that you could give someone to help them have access to you and your group or hit some kind of success with your free stuff. All right. The end goal for the audience is like, what do you want the folks in your world to accomplish from getting value from you or watching your content or using your model or just what you're talking about in general, right? And it doesn't always have to be related to business either. If any of y'all read my profile post this morning, I dealt with some shit this week that broke my damn heart. And I used it in content because I know people will feel it and they need to feel it. And I just used it to kind of highlight what I want my brand to be about. Right. I saw some kids cry this week because their parents couldn't come eat food with them on parent lunch day. It broke my fucking heart, y'all. Some parents can't do that kind of shit. That shit hit home with me because I missed the first 2 years with mine because of how I worked at the plant. All right. What do you want folks in your world to be able to accomplish from what you're putting out? Is it tactical? Is it a monetary result? Is it a different perspective shift, a new way of thinking? Maybe something you figured out on your own. Maybe it's something that you didn't think was true, but then you figured out it was. Mike always wants me to use them, so I use them again. He's told me he's like I can't really wrap my head around making money online, but now he's seen some commissions come through in a very short amount of time from starting from scratch. So now he's like, okay, I still can't fathom, bigger money, 500,000 bucks a month, shit like that. But my man's going to get to it because he's already proved to himself, like, all right, what I've been doing is actually starting to bring in some results and I can see it, right? His wife sees it. It's like, okay, all right, this is kind of real now. All right. Now it's a volume game, right? And he understands that. So like being able to tell that kind of shit, it's like I didn't ever think I could make money online. All I've ever known is get my hands dirty, steel-toed boots, and fucking working 12 hours a day. That was me too. And then I fucked around, did some shit over a couple years, learned some hard lessons, and then I saw what could really happen. There's been, a handful of days where me and Nate did over $10,000 cash collected in a single day. That still blows my mind, even when I say it, even though we've did it multiple times. It's crazy, right? But that's really what's possible if you stick with shit long enough. 10 grand in a day, that's chump change to some of the people that we're in rooms with. Like, oh, you did 10 grand in a day? Cool. All right. We do that, before breakfast. They're doing $100,000 a month. I know folks that are doing $1 million a month. That's almost unfathomable for most people, but it's possible. People do it every day, right? So, is it an emotional connection? Is it something they don't know that's possible? Like how many of y'all have seen shit online that have just broke your brain? I see shit every day. Like, man, this is crazy, right? But that's the end goal for the audience is to help them change a belief or a perspective so that they can see what's possible, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is like getting clear on the content before you create it is a very I had this thing on my desk for the longest time uh that said clarity before copy. And the reason that I put it there was because I want to get clear on what I'm actually trying to do in my content before I post it. And again, the content you create doesn't always need to be about business. I think there's a delicate balance of like personal and business. It's like the training we ran in Group Juice on the monthly workshop. I want to say it was a couple months ago. There's two different things that you need to sell people on. You have your brand, which is you as an individual, a human, a person, a mom, a dad, a husband, wife, whatever. And then you have the product you're selling. Those are two completely separate things that you have to sell people on, right? Yes, yes, people will buy on information and, logical purchasing decisions because a product's trending or whatever. But there's two different, and then you have your brand, emotional connection, relatability. Uh, your audience is inspired because they feel connected to you, right? So there's two different levers that you can really pull on, and the thing that we would really implore a lot of people would be leaning heavy into building a personal brand, sharing stories, sharing examples. It kind of goes hand in hand with what we've talked about over the years is like use your social media as a fucking journal and document everything you're doing because it creates this string of stories and people can watch you change your life in real time. Like I posted a TikTok a couple weeks ago where, I was did a post or something and one of the comments was like, "Yeah, I've watched you in real time over the last 3 years build $1 million business. Been inspiring to watch, right? So they've just watched me in real time go from where I was to where I am now. Um, but your brand is yours, right? Nobody can take that from you. Nobody can take your stories. Nobody can take your you, right? That's the biggest thing is it's what creates real security in your guys' business is the brand you build, right? The connections you build via content, the stories that you share, your own experiences. Products change, offers change, trending products in the market change. I couldn't tell you how many times in the last 3 years there's been a new trending product in the market, or how
Yeah,
many times I changed my business, changed offers, done different promotions, done different campaigns, but I still have the exact same brand. I had the same group for 5 years through all my ventures online. That same group is the same one that Flip and myself ran lives in for years and, made magic, so to speak.
yeah.
Um, so
How
the
many how many of y'all have heard like, oh, online business is saturated? Has anybody heard that? Like put a one in the chat. Or just like, you know, too many people are doing it. Like, all right, Lisa says one, she's heard it. How many of y'all feel like it's saturated? Because I'm about to break your brain. All right. See some more comments coming in. All right, they say it's saturated, or people believe that it's saturated, because too many people are doing it. Here's one more. How many of you have heard or been told or taught like, hey, you can only sell one thing at a time, right? How many of y'all heard that or been told that? Stick with one thing, only talk about this topic. Don't talk about personal shit. It's all bullshit. I'm gonna tell you why. Just today, y'all, I'm gonna tell y'all physical product shit that I've sold. All right. Some of it was my wife's shit, like a fucking colorful rug. Okay. I was on Amazon. And then on my TikTok, I've sold multiple car hood covers, and then a fucking alien suit. Okay, sold the alien suit a handful of times. All right, all from one TikTok channel that I started building a couple years ago, and I can honestly say that done multi six figures from my TikTok channel with it just now hit 40,000 followers. You don't need big audiences, and you can sell all kinds of shit. I've sold many physical products. I've sold physical products on lives without trying to sell the physical product because I was sharing it as an example with some of our students, and it was the laptop stand that I'm actually using right now because I love it. It's perfect for sitting on the couch doing some work out here on the back deck. Keeps everything off of you. It's got this little mouse side. Like, I've done that. You can sell all kinds of things. And here's the reason why online business will never be saturated. And it goes back to what Nate just said. Each and every one of you sons of bitches in here, and I mean that in a good way, don't take offense to it, but each and every one of y'all are unique in your own way. Y'all have like different personalities. Nobody can match that shit. Nobody can be like Mike. Nobody can be like Eric. Nobody can be like Eddie and Lindley. Nobody can be like Lisa. Nobody damn sure enough can't be like Nate. And can't nobody be like Flip. Right? But there's still relatability in all of it. All right. That's the big thing. It's never going to be saturated. That's one reason. The second reason is there's always going to be businesses and companies and brands that will be glad to pay a commission or do a brand deal or a referral fee if you help them bring stuff into their business. Like any of y'all that have any kind of business, I don't care what it is. Do you think you'd be mad if someone was like, "Hey, I want to do some content around some of the products or services you provide. Would you be cool if I brought you 10 new customers every month? Would you pay me a referral fee?" Are you going to tell them no if they bring you 10 people with new business every month that you would have not gotten if it wasn't for them? How many of y'all are not going to do that? Probably none of y'all. That's why it's never going to be saturated. Not ever. It's going to get bigger and bigger.
And I think saturation only becomes a problem when you play the same game as everybody else, right? Like saturation can be a very real thing. Let's say you have 50,000 people selling the exact same product in the exact same way, same content, same faceless stuff, same email campaign, same everything, which is a thing in the online business space, right? Like that's a thing. You buy this product, they give you the templates, they give you all this stuff, which can work. Like I'm not saying it can't work, but it's hard because then you have, you know, 50,000 people using the same post, using the same content, using the same product, using the same exact thing. Now, the problem that ends up happening with that style of content or that style of thing is it gets dominated by the big creators, right? They all swim up to the person with the biggest audience or the person that's getting the most amount of views, while all the other people are left fighting for the crumbs, right? So the way that you combat that is you lean into the you piece, the branding piece, the personal piece, right? We've watched it happen so many times over the years where people were following copy and paste strategies and then they start taking some of like the group juice processes, R models, and everything changes for them because they start utilizing their fucking unique story, their unique experience, their unique uh examples of how they're doing things. Like that was the thing that changed everything in my business. Okay, TikTok came out. Like I was building my business before TikTok was a thing. Everybody's like, "Oh, you grew your group because of TikTok." Like I was already building my business before TikTok was even a thing. Like
Yeah.
TikTok wasn't a platform when we started. Um, but when everybody, started jumping on TikTok and everybody was promoting that value ladder product and everybody was using the same fucking content, the thing that changed everything about my business is because I zigged when everybody was zagging or whatever you want to say. Everybody was using the same shit, same styles. So what I did is I said, "Hey, I'm going to stop fucking selling products on my TikTok and I'm just going to use it to grow my group." It became a completely different experience for everybody in the market that was watching my content. I was selling the exact same product as everybody else, but instead of being like, hey, go through this copy and pasted funnel and go through the same exact automation that you're getting in 10 times a day in your email inbox, it was like, hey, come join my group. And then I gave them a free six day fast start challenge, which showed them how to set up their profile, showed them how to create some content, and all this type of stuff. And at the end of that 6 days, I gave them an invite to buy the same product that I wanted to sell anyways. I started making sales versus like getting buried in a sea of all these people with massive audiences. And I was like copying them, looking up like how come their video got 200,000 views and mine got, you know, 200. Like that's where everything changed for me, right? Because I started leaning into something that was unique to me, right? And everybody in this room has that. Like everybody in this room has a different story, experience, example. Um, so that's what you're gonna, in my opinion, that's the only time saturation becomes a problem, which is a very prevalent thing in the market right now. Everybody's buying content banks and content they can use and like I mean, yeah, it might be good to get a couple wins under your belt, but long term, that's why I genuinely believe I don't think faceless brands will work long term. Right? I think they might work to help you get some reps in, but I don't think significant success over prolonged years it will be a reality of faceless stuff. And I know there
Right.
is a different, and I'm not talking about like behind the scenes anonymous brands like people we've ran trainings with James where he does a lot of shit behind the scenes. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like faceless social media promotional content. I don't think that's a long-term play. You will struggle in the long term of things. Um, because of the branding piece, right? The brand building and the connection that gets built with building a personal brand.
Okay, guys, I'm getting out of here. Y'all have a good day.
All right, Eric, thanks
All
for
right,
jumping
Caleb.
on. Congrats on the commission, my man.
Man, thanks.
Heck
Hell yeah,
yeah.
dude.
Bye.
Love it. Later. But yeah, this is stuff that people are sleeping on and ignoring and skipping, and it's kind of hindering their growth, the success side of things. Um, I had a lot of people tell me in the beginning, they was like, "Oh, Flip, you cuss too much. You're not going to be successful because you're not professional." You know what I said to that? Fuck that noise. That's what I said. And then I got the nickname Beardy McSwearman. I got a shirt with that shit on it because one of the people that paid us made it for me, and they fucked around and took their business to over 10 grand pretty quick, right? So don't listen to other people. Do what you want to do. Find the people that are like you, right? Like anybody here offended by, the language that I use?
Yeah, makes me uncomfortable.
Scott, I don't give a shit, and neither, yeah, I know y'all don't, right? Like he just flicked me off. Oh God, hurt my feelings. Look, like you guys got to be yourselves, right? And I know, like we've had people that are like hardcore Christians, like I'm a Christian too, but I'm not perfect either, and I sin, okay? God made me this way though, and He's probably shaking His finger at me most days, but we've had there's one Christian lady like just as sweet as she could be, right? Actually, two of them, but one was Fairlith, and we had another one. Um, and it was like, Flip, I really don't like your mouth, but I'm getting past it because I know I can see that you could help me, right?
No.
They still done business with us, right?
So that was the funniest thing. Like, yeah, what was it? Oh, someone shared something with me from you guys, and it turned me off because I didn't like Flip's potty mouth. And
Yeah,
she was a pianist at a church. Like that was her job.
yep,
Like she worked at a
yep.
church. Um, but her actual what she said is she's like eventually I realized that it had nothing to do with you cussing is the fact that you were just being you. And that's really what you guys were teaching people, is imploring
Yep.
them to just be themselves in their content, in their business that they run. Uh, and that was like the driving factor for them, that they worked with us in core for quite a while actually. Um, which is kind of goes back to what we said earlier in the call too. It's fascinating the connections that you end up building because, like, you know, us foul mouthed, I'm extremely inappropriate working with somebody who works at a church. Um, we never what she started saying hell yeah. It was
Hell
a
yeah.
hail yeah. Corrupted
That's
her.
good.
So a little recap for you guys as far as like tactics. When you're creating content, start with emotions. Think about what you want your audience to feel, what type of connection you're trying to build, what type of relatability you're trying to create with the audience that is consuming your content. The thing you got to remember, the thing I want to burn into your guys' brain is like that's why you're creating content. I know it seems backwards because we talk about creating content about yourself and we're talking about sharing stories, but you realistically are creating content for the consumer. It's for them, right? You want to create connection to them. You want them to see themselves in you or what you're doing, right? Um, I would highly encourage you guys to spend some time and look at creating some core stories, things that you can hammer on repeat. These could be a couple sentences. They could be, motivations behind why you're building your business, drives behind why you're building your business, what did work, what didn't work for you. Create something that you can repeat to create relatability. We've done it all the time without even thinking about it, right? Like Flip said, the lawnmower story, him talking about how, hey, he really wanted to invest in this program. He didn't have money, so he fucking sold his lawnmower. And that him selling his lawnmower turned into his first $20,000 month. Okay. As an example, think about things that you could repeat over and over again. You guys will start seeing this in a lot of big creators. They're doing this on repeat. And it's not on accident. It's on purpose. It's intentional. Um, and then before you press post, you write your content, you record your content, ask yourself these pre-content questions, right? What is the hook, the promise? Like catch people's attention. That's the biggest thing, especially if you're creating short form video content. This is probably one of the most important parts. If this isn't kind of dialed in or you don't play around with these enough, the content's not going anywhere. And
I think
that's
that's
just
where I get the disconnect there. I just want to talk, and sometimes I get lost in the hook, trying to come up with something that's going to be related to what I'm trying to talk about.
so the one thing you can do is like look at the overall uh a really easy one. Not easy, but use this as the hook. What is the end goal for the piece of content? Right? What is the end goal for the audience and use that as the
Right.
hook. If I'm creating a piece of content that's talking about, hey, this is a cool strategy that allows me to wake up to daily messages from people that want to buy my offers, like, hey, if you want to turn your free community into a client getting machine, watch this video, right? Or hey, this like if the biggest thing is starting with the end goal and the audience, right? And then you can always use that, frame that as a question, frame that as the hook. Um, you can do positive hooks, you can do negative hooks. Could be like, hey, this is the reason your business isn't where you want it to be. And obviously, you're not limited to online business stuff, but this is a good real time example. Start with the end goal, right? Or start with something that ruffles somebody's feathers. Start with a
Look at the
misconception or a uh, unpopular opinion, right?
Yeah. Look at the hook sheet. Like that's not just all for business stuff either. Like if you look at the hooks as a whole on the hooks cheat sheet, like kind of look at what you're wanting to create content about. It could be life, family, business, hobbies, anything. And then kind of use those templates and kind of match it to what Nate was just saying. Turn it into a question. Asking the questions is always going to be a good hook because it's going to be very specific. And here's another very, very important thing that I want you guys to consider and keep in mind. Your content is not meant to be for everyone. If you're getting 200 views or 300 views, that's not a bad thing. Okay, that's where me and Nate typically live, 2 to 500 views typically. Right? Your content is not meant for everyone. Okay, it's literally not. When we go viral, it's just because something hit really hard, like it struck a hardcore uh, emotion. Okay, or it triggered someone, or it was just super relatable. Right? So don't get caught up in the metrics of, I only get 200 views, right? To the person who's not creating content, trying to grow their business, that's 200 more views that you're getting that they are not. But just think about questions, right?
200 people is a lot of people. I
Yeah,
mean, realistically, that's a lot of people.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So just use these. I think this is a big thing for me that helped with a lot of my content was just getting clarity before I created content, started writing content, right? If you guys look at like me mapping out my week of content when I'm writing my week's worth of posts, it's I'm framing the content first, getting clear on the outcome or the idea of the content before I ever even write it.
yeah,
Right. Now, obviously, you don't always have to do this if you're doing like a personal lifestyle picture. Hey, I ate a brownie for breakfast. Like, obviously, you don't have to put too much thought behind that piece of content, but
yeah,
more often than not, ask yourself these questions before you create,
yeah.
right?
And you can also do visual hooks, okay? Visual hooks, text on screen, verbal hooks, like all of these are hooks, okay? Think about the videos that I know you guys see that really catch your attention. And then, I have something I guess it's kind of created itself, over time the last few years is I call it the third eye, my marketing eye. I see business shit in damn near everything, right? Literally everything. When I go to Walmart, when I'm in the drive-through, when I'm hunting, like I see lessons in marketing literally everywhere. Okay. But visual hooks are a really good thing to practice and play around with too. So try and let your inner child creativity come through. Like be fucking goofy if you're goofy, be obnoxious, be loud.